Hey guys, so today we're going to be doing a question on LeetCode. This question is currently being asked by Facebook and Google, and the question is called move zeros. What's up guys? Today we're doing move zeros. This problem is currently being asked by Facebook, and the problem description is: given an array nums, write a function to move all zeros to the end of it while maintaining the relative order of the non-zero elements. So given an example, input 0, 1, 0, 3, 12, we get the output 1, 3, 12, 0, 0. And the reason for that is that we want to move these zeros to the end and then maintain the order of the 1, the 3, and the 12. And then we get two notes. You must do this in place without making a copy of the array, and then minimize the total number of operations. So the first thing I wanted to note is when you hear that you want to do things in place, we're thinking pairwise swaps. So we want to be swapping the zeros with non-zeros and then maintain the relative order of the non-zero elements. And then in order to maintain that order, we want to do our swapping either in increasing order forward through the array or in decreasing order backwards, decrementing through the array. And the way I just want to do this would be increasing. So I'd put 2 pointers on the first and the second index, and then I just push these through the array, swapping with the zeros with the non-zero values, and then incrementing forward. So in order to do this, we need to think of our swapping conditions, and then we'd only really have one, and it would just be if A points to a 0 and B is points to a non-zero value, swap. And then now we need to think of incrementing cases to know when we want to increment. So the first case would be if our pointer B is not at the end of the list and A is a non-zero value, we can increment both. And then our next case would just be that B is not at the end of the list. We could increment B, because in the case that A is 0, we wouldn't want to increment past that because we'd want to move that to the end. And then our last case would just be if B is at the end of the list, just increment A towards B. And then this would give us the natural termination condition, which would be while A is not B. So basically the pseudocode for this would just be, while A is not B, we want to swap and increment until we're at the end and all the zeros are moved toward the end. So let's just walk through this array and try to do that. So in this first case, we hit our swapping condition because A is at a 0 value and B is not at a 0 value, so we'd swap these, and then we'd increment forward because this would hit our first incrementing condition. And then now, because A is at a 0 value, we'd only move B forward because we wouldn't hit a swapping condition. But now we're going to hit a swapping condition because A has a 0 value and B has a non-zero value. So we're going to swap A and B and increment both forward. And then now we're going to increment again and then walk A towards B. They're going to equal each other, and we're going to get 1, 3, and 12. And the time and space complexity would be O of n time and O of 1 space. So this looks pretty good. I think we're ready to implement this thing. So we want to create 2 pointers. I'm not going to use A and B because I think that's a little ugly, so I'll just use pointers 1 and 2. I'll say while, not our termination condition, so while pointer 1 is not equal to pointer 2. And then also I'd want to make sure that pointer 2 is less than the length of our array, just in case we get an array size 0, this would check that case. We'd want to do our swapping condition now and our incrementing condition. So if nums at pointer 1 is equal to 0 and nums at pointer 2 is not equal to 0, and then we don't want array, we want nums, we'd do our swap. And then the way you do your pairwise swap is it's nums p1, nums p2 is equal to nums p2, comma nums p1. And then in all other cases, we just want to add our incrementing condition. So if pointer 2 is less than len array minus 1 and nums p1, which means there's a non-zero value at nums p1, we'd want to increment both. Elif P2 is at len array -1, but then there is a 0 value at P1. We just want to increment P2. And then our last case is that P2 is at the end of the array. We just want to increment pointer 1. And then we wouldn't want to use R, we want to use nums because that's what they named the variable. Bad habits. So this looks pretty good. Let's run this. Cool, and that worked. So let's test it on everything. Sweet, so that worked. I hope that made sense, guys. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. If you want me to do more questions in the future, please give this a like and subscribe, and message me on Patreon if you have any questions. Thanks so much, guys. Have a good one. Peace.